There is trouble in Buffalo, so we're going to be talking about some NFL trade rumors that the Saints could get involved in around wide receiver Keon Coleman, the Louisiana native. He could get dealt this offseason. You're watching Saints Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Trizzy Trace Girouard. And why are we talking about this in the first place? Well, because there are problems in the Buffalo Bills organization. Obviously, there's been a lot of changes to that organization since they got eliminated from the playoffs. But Terry Pegula, he just pinned the wide receiver Keon Coleman pick on the coaching staff, said Brandon Beane was being a team player and that Coleman wasn't on top of Beane's list. So basically just threw Keon Coleman under the bus and was like, yeah, we didn't really want him anyway. We're just trying to, make everyone happy, yada, yada, yada. But this is kind of an interesting conversation, not only because of this, but because of the fact that Sean McDermott was also fired earlier this week. So for the New Orleans Saints, there's now an opportunity to potentially go and get a wide receiver that a team already doesn't really like having around right now anyway, and bringing him to New Orleans and bringing him home. So how interested are you in a Keon Coleman trade? Scale it for me, Saints fans, 1 to 100. 1 means you're not interested really at all. 100 meaning you need it like you need oxygen. I think that Keon Coleman could be a pretty interesting addition to the wide receiver room. He definitely could bring some size to that department, but I want to hear from you because we're going to break it on down here on Saints Now. So Keon Coleman, in case you guys forgot, he is actually from the Louisiana. He is a former second-round pick, 33rd overall, basically an extension of the first round. In 2024, he was disappointing in Buffalo since being drafted out of Florida State. And one of the things that I remember talking about in the draft pre-draft process was Keon Coleman and how I think that he would be a pretty good fit for the New Orleans Saints offense. And now even more so, I think that could be pretty interesting for the black and gold. But why this is also interesting is he was disciplined by the team in November. Buffalo actually made him a healthy scratch for 4 games, which is why he was only available for 13 contests this season. But he did put up some okay numbers. It isn't really anything to run home about, and it honestly isn't worth the 33rd overall pick. That being said, I think when it comes to Keon Coleman, maybe a change of scenery could be beneficial. And Keon Coleman is a player, like I said, that provides some size. He provides some extra dynamic in the wide receiver department. And on top of that, he is a player that did catch a touchdown in the playoffs for the Buffalo Bills. So it's not like he's a terrible football player. I just think that he's in a situation that they didn't really want him in the first place, and they just kind of did it, and yada, 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 making everyone happy. And I think for Keon Coleman, there is a lot of untapped potential. And I think if you get to have an opportunity to bring him in, why not? I mean, to be totally honest, a change of scenery, like I said, could be extremely beneficial for Keon Coleman. And I don't think that he's a player that needs to get traded to the New Orleans Saints. Like, I don't think the Kellen Moore and Mickey Loomis need to be clamoring for this player and offering the king's fortune for this guy. But I do think when it comes to this player, there's a lot of upside and untapped potential that maybe Kellen Moore and Tyler Shough could unlock. And I do think that he's somebody who could be complementary to the current offensive weapons. When you think about the landscape, you currently have Alvin Kamara as your lead back. You have Chris Olave, Devon Vele, you have Mason Tipton, you have a lot of guys in the mix that you could potentially lean on. You also have Juwan Johnson, too, as a big-bodied pass catcher, but I think bringing in another guy in Keon Coleman, who's only 22 years old, by the way, could be a smart move. And he has untapped potential. He has upside. And coming up, I'm going to tell you whether or not I actually would trade for Keon Coleman because I have a pretty good discussion topic around this. And plus, we're also going to talk about the future of the wide receiver department if we did trade for Keon Coleman. First things first, got to tell you guys about today's presenting sponsor, and that is Bubs Naturals. In 2026, I'm not just getting back into my normal healthy routine, I'm actually helping my body turn back the clock. As we get older, it's inevitable. Our bodies will face more challenges. Stiff joints in the morning, longer recovery time at the gym, hairs thinning, nails breaking, and your skin is losing that smooth glow. These things happen because your body's collagen levels start to naturally decline beginning as early as your mid-20s. And good news, all of these things can be fixed. Collagen is often referred to as the glue that holds our bodies together. So you can imagine that a decline in collagen production as you age has some big impacts on your body, and that's where Bubs Naturals collagen peptides come in. I love Bubs Naturals for a lot of reasons, but the biggest one is honestly it just mixes in so easily to my morning beverages. I like to have some juice or maybe some water, maybe some coffee. There's no clumps. It's flavorless. You just whip it up really easily. It's awesome. It's third-party tested. There's no junk. organic, it's sustainably sourced. You're going to love Bub's Naturals, and I highly encourage you to get some today. Live better longer. For a limited time, our listeners are getting 20% off at Bub's Naturals by using code CHAT at checkout. Just head to bubsnaturals.com and use our promo code CHAT. That's code CHAT. And you're all set. After you make your purchase, they will ask where you heard about them. Please support Saints now and tell them that our show sent you. Now for Keon Coleman, in terms of a trade, I am interested, but I want it for the right price. I am not offering a day 2 pick. I'm honestly going to offer maybe a 6th or 7th round pick. And hell, I think Buffalo would take it just because they don't want to deal with him anymore. I think they just aren't happy with him in the current situation. I don't think that Keon Coleman would want to play in the current situation that he's in Buffalo. So for the right price, for like a 6th or 7th round pick, yeah, I had to do it. Sorry, Coop. It's one of those things that you maybe consider it for a right price. Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those low risk, high reward type moves, and it would be a homecoming, which could be kind of cool. And I know a lot of Saints fans, that means a little bit more and it's a little extra sentimental, but there is something to consider. You may not need to go and get Keon Coleman because you actually might have your Keon Coleman at home in Devon Vele. The Saints may have their version of that big-bodied physical presence that Keon Coleman could provide in Devon Vele. Now, I will say, I don't think there's anything wrong with having an extra player that could fulfill that role because God forbid there's an injury or God forbid you got to get off the field to tie your cleats or something. Your laces came undone, so you got to go and hop off the field to get a water break or something like that. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a lot of options, a lot of high-level options, and I do think Devon Vele this year will see an increased role for Kellen Moore's offense. We really saw his role emerge and expand after Tyler Shough took over as the Saints quarterback. And before he suffered his injury that ended him up on IR, he was a player that was starting to stack some really, really good production for the black and gold. And right now, the wide receiver depth chart is as follows. This is the current scape in late January of the Saints depth chart. You have Devon Vele, Chris Olave, Mason Tipton. Don't forget about Bub Means, Jalen Polk, Dante Pettis, Trey Palmer, Kevin Austin Jr., Ronnie Bell, and then you have a couple of extra guys on futures contracts too. But I am curious to figure out what the role of Jalen Polk will be, especially if you do trade for Keon Coleman. Like, I'm just kind of curious what everyone's role would become. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a lot of high-level players and a lot of guys that have upside on your roster. I mean, at the end of the day, there's no such thing as too many pass catchers. But with Jalen Polk, I am really interested to see what he is going to be doing for the Saints offense. You could tell he's already starting to get some chemistry with Tyler Shough. He's been in the offices. He's been at practices. He's been in the classroom studying, preparing, getting ready to take over for the Saints offense. And I'm curious if he's going to be like that wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4. Is he going to kind of take over for Devon Vele? Like, what's going to happen there? I think it's going to be an interesting conversation, and especially if you add in Keon Coleman to the mix. But look, another guy that we have to have a conversation about in the wide receiver room is Bub Means. I mean, he drafted this guy a couple of years ago, and throughout his career, remember, he didn't play at all this season because he suffered an injury in the preseason. But in 2024, he had 9 catches, 118 yards, 1 touchdown on 15 targets. And I know that Bub Means was one of those players that wasn't necessarily totally covered a lot. He kind of went under the radar for a lot of different reasons, mainly because he was a later round pick, not a big name. But Bub Means is a guy who can be really dangerous over the middle in running slants. He's somebody that has a very similar size and athletic profile to Michael Thomas, which will make a lot of Saints fans really excited. I'm not saying he is Mike Thomas, but he has that size and that skill set that Mike Thomas had that made him so dominant, and Bub Means could maybe be a very, very small version of that. Now, with Bub Means, you got to see him stay healthy. I want to see him stay on the field because I do think that there's something there. But if he can't, that just means Keon Coleman would be even more valuable to have. Now, I do think, regardless of the decision you make with Keon Coleman, maybe you don't have to sign a wide receiver. Maybe you don't trade for Coleman and you do go sign a wide receiver. I don't care what you do. You need to add a wide receiver with a top 100 pick no matter what. Get an extra guy that's on a rookie contract that you can have for a handful of years, that you can have a cost-controlled player that's young, that you can grow and develop and help him learn and just thrive and shine in the Saints offense. Like, I just think that the Saints need to prioritize wide receiver this year. They didn't draft one last year, and I think that would be a mistake if they didn't take one with the top 100 selection in the 2026 NFL draft. Now, if you are subscribed to the channel and you are a part of the Golden Gang, get down in the comment section and give me a stay golden in the chat. I appreciate you guys for rocking and rolling with us in this video. Also, let me know, would you trade for Keon Coleman? Are you interested? Are you not? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate you for tuning in. My name is Trizzy Trace Girouard. Y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.